Well, normally people have been taught that the white horse is the conqueror. Nobody knows for sure, so they sort of put an ambiguous term in there, the conqueror. Then normally people say the red horse is war.
Now, I've heard on the white horse, I have heard that it is either the Antichrist or Jesus Christ.
Yes, I've heard both.
Yeah, there it is again. You got, it's the he of Daniel 9:27 and 11:31. It's got to be one or the other. So some say it's Jesus, some say it's the Antichrist.
But the truth of the matter is, it's neither.
Right.
And we've explained exactly what it is.
Okay.
Now, the red horse is said to be war, which you can sort of make that fit, I guess. But it's very obvious that communism is the answer to that symbol. Then you have the black horse. Many people say it's famine. But the reason I couldn't accept that is because the very next horse kills with famine. And it's like God is duplicating. Once I understood, everything cleared up for me. Now, there's one more thing that we need to look at here, Eddie, and I want to talk to everyone about right now. What's the significance here of this as far as the chronology of the book of Revelation? Most people have been taught that the book of Revelation is taught in an order, and a lot of people think that most of it will come to pass in a final 7-year period. As a matter of fact, many people teach that after chapter 4, you move into the final 7-year period. Now, if what we have just shared with you is true, that the red horse is communism, the white horse is Catholicism, the black horse is capitalism, then it becomes really obvious that these spirits have been loose for a long time. That means these seals have been open for a long time. Now, this is a stunning realization. If you have been locked into the traditional type of understanding. I remember when it happened to me. I had read all the same books that some of you have read. But when I saw this, I said, wait a minute. This means that these seals, Catholicism has been in the earth since somewhere around 300 A.D. Communism, Karl Marx wrote the manifesto in around 1850, 1860. Capitalism in the 20th century has been the dominant force. So these powers have been unleashed in the earth a long time, and this makes us open up to the possibility that perhaps we could live in the book of Revelation. We've already talked about the fall of the Berlin Wall and shown that that was in chapter 13. So perhaps the order of the book of Revelation is not what we have thought it to be. And I hope as we continue through this study that you can open your mind to that possibility, because in my opinion, that is in fact what is true. So remember, if we understand these horses and their meaning, that means that some of the book of Revelation, we're already in the book of Revelation right now, we're living there right now, and I'd like to say to you there's no proof whatsoever that all of this has to be contained within a 7-year period.
Irvin, I'm looking here at the January-February 2000 issue of Endtime that we produced, and the cover story is Behold, a Pale Horse. And the title of this is A Century of Death. What's this all about?
Well, it's really interesting because I had wondered if the pale horse was loosed yet or not. When I received The Economist magazine, I think it was in September of the year 2000, they were wrapping up the millennium, and they were also wrapping up the century. And
it was September of '99. So that was the issue.
Yeah, they would have been wrapping up the century then, right? And so, in that particular issue, they had an article called "Bloodiest Century of the World." And I was reading this article. They were wrapping up the events from 1900 to the year 2000. And when they said that the century from 1900 to the year 2000, the 20th century, was the bloodiest century in the history of the world, I thought, surely not. And then they begin to enumerate World War I, 8.3 million dead, World War II, 52 million dead. And then they went through Korea, Vietnam, and all the hundreds of wars around the world. The Chinese Cultural Revolution, 60 million dead. The Stalinist purges in the Soviet Union, 20 million dead. And it dawned on me that it had in fact been a terribly bloody century. And so I had to ask myself, does that mean then that the pale horse rider was probably loosed around the first part of the 20th century? And Eddie, I had to conclude that probably was the truth. That's another thing. When you see what these prophecies mean, it's like it opens up everything. The news becomes a new item for you.
It's like mankind killed 200 million of its own, and if you add in the 1-point-something billion abortions that have happened this century, you're talking about a pretty bloody century. You're talking about a century of death is what you're looking at, and that's the pale horse. Very interesting.
Well, it is, and what all this means to us is simply this. The four horsemen of the apocalypse are loose in the earth right now. It appears the next seal to be open is the fifth seal. It doesn't look like it's opened yet. It appears that the fifth seal is opened during the time called the Great Tribulation. It may actually launch the Great Tribulation. By understanding these things, we're able to see what God's plan is, what God is doing, and what we should be doing.
Jesus is